Oh, wait on. Better. Let's have a look at the new Makita XGT 40 volt Max tool kit. It is a 6-piece kit. The model number is the DK0115G601. And what is it that comes in this kit? We have a circular saw, a hammer drill, a rotary hammer drill, an angle grinder, a reciprocating saw, and on the left you will see a purple impact driver. Yours may not be purple. Down in the description there will be timestamps to all the tools in this kit if you don't want to watch the whole thing. Otherwise, grab yourself a drink and strap yourself in for 2 hours and 20 minutes of Makita XGT 40 volt max tool action. G'day guys, I think before I go into the specs, we'll go and just put these two against each other, eh? This is the old 18 volt, the new 40 volt. Let's just go do a few cuts and stuff. One more go with this one. Some of the things Makita say about this is that it's about 40% up. Yep. And new switch designed to reduce contact wearness. Wearness? Somebody Google that. I'm pretty certain that's not a word. Before I do the next test, I'd just like to have a bit of a word. This is about batteries and comparisons. A lot of people seem to comment and say that you can't compare two things that are different, which really does my head in. There's no point in comparing things that are identical. If you're going out to buy a grinder, for instance, and you go and have a look at two grinders and they're both 18 volt, poof, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Both say they're 9,000 RPM, okay, you stop thinking about that as well. They're both the same length, don't have to worry about that anymore. But what you start to look at is the things that are different, not the things that are the same. So you start, maybe one's going to be able to cut a couple of millimeters deeper. Maybe one comes with a battery that has slightly higher amp hours. Those are the things that are going to make you buy the tool, not the things that are the same. And when it comes to amp hours on batteries, this 18 volt battery is a 6 amp hour. This 40 volt battery is a 4 amp hour. I can't do the same, and it doesn't matter anyway. This would have to be an 8 amp hour battery to match the same longevity as this one, but this one's using twice as much, drawing twice as much, so it wouldn't be equal anyway. And if I put a 4 amp hour on this, it's still not equal, so it doesn't matter. What makes the most sense is using the biggest battery you can get for each one. The highest amp hour battery on each of these tools, so that will give you the longest run time for either tool, and that's how we're going to compare it. If you are sitting there right now thinking, it's not fair, one's an 18 volt, 36 volt, I'm going to put that in the comments. Please go back to school. I can't help you here anymore. For this final test, I haven't charged the batteries that I've been doing the other test with, so they are on 3 bars each. And now I'm just going to run them until they are both flat. This will basically just see if this one is drawing a lot more than this one or not, or something like that. There you have it, 9 minutes more, and the brake didn't work. It sucked too much life out of the battery, I guess, for the brake. Now of course when you're using the tool, it's not going to last for 29 minutes cutting things. Makita rate it at 7 minutes cutting 20 millimeters deep through concrete. So if you cut a 20 millimeter deep line for 7 minutes, that's your whole battery gone. But I think that showed you'll get more life out of the biggest XGT battery than you will out of the biggest LXT battery, which is something people wanted to know and been asking me. Will this last longer than this? Looks like it will. This also cuts much faster, so your productivity should be a lot better than with this. This is going to take a lot more battery power to do the same task that this one does. I'll now charge the 6 amp hour 18 volt battery on the 40 volt charger because someone asked a question and wanted to know if the 6 amp hour battery charged faster than the 5 amp hour battery. So I'm going to test that and I'll stick it on my other channel. How does this always happen? Right, we'll now compare the specs and the features of these two different tools. First up, the weights. The 18 volt with a grinding disc, the handle, a battery, you're looking at 2.8 kgs, 2,805 grams. The 40 volt battery, grinding wheel, handle, 3,440 grams. So that is just over 600 grams difference, or the weight of an entire 18 volt battery. The handles are identical. The locking nuts are actually slightly better on the 18 volt one, but they're basically, basically the same. Threads are the same. In the hand they feel pretty much the same. They've gone with the same sort of design, apart from the battery is on an angle on the 40 volt, whereas it's straight on the 18, which means you can stand an 18 volt one up like that, whereas the 40 volt one will never stand up, has to be laid down. They both have a slide switch, not a paddle switch. You can get these in slide or paddle, slide with AWS and variable speed, and paddle with AWS and variable speed. They have once again gone with these fine mesh guards over the air intakes, which are much easier to come off on the 40 volt. In fact, I don't know, I'm imagining a lot of guys are going to lose these because it pings out pretty easily, a lot easier than the 18 volt ones do. The 18 volt ones have one extra point of contact. They are both 8,500 RPM, which is slightly misleading because you think, okay, they're both the same speed, they're going to cut the same. Well, as you will have seen in the videos, that was not the case. When you're cutting with the 18 volt, you can feel it slowing down as you're cutting through the material, whereas the 40 volt managed to maintain the speed. I don't have a tachometer, unfortunately, but I have one on the way. When I get one, I might test just to see how much this loses, the 18 volt loses during full load compared to the 40 volt. In the earlier part of the video, when I was cutting with an abrasive wheel, it was much nicer using the 18 volt, but slower. There's getting a bit of chatter on the 40 volt, which chews through your discs a lot quicker. That's sometimes due to just the balance of getting the tool right. It's a brand new tool, I'm not used to it yet, that may have something to do with it. Or how far you are cutting away from the holding point of your material, that sort of thing. There might be a bit of vibration in that piece of threaded rod I was cutting. So I then switched to a metal cutting metal disc, and that didn't have the vibration issue. And the 40 volt felt so much quicker and faster and nicer. As you will have seen with all the tests I did, the 40 volt smashed the 18 volt. It was, I haven't looked at the figures, but it was substantially faster. I'm guessing somewhere in the region of 30 or 40% quicker. Balance wise, the 40 volt is heavier at the back, but it seems to balance quite nicely. It's a slightly longer unit, so that may have helped with the balance. None of the new 40 volt 125mm grinders come with X-Lock, but there's a new 18 volt one that does. If you have one of these 18 volt Makitas, you will know that this guard is a pig. To get it on and off, you need to loosen that, and then I can't get this one off with the handle where it is. So you've got to undo the handle, and get it round and take it off. Bit of a pain, and then you lock it in place like that, but if you haven't got the screw at the right tightness, it still moves around, so you've got to get a screwdriver and try and tighten it. It's a bit of a pig to get on and off, and that encourages some people maybe to not put it on when they should. So this is one of the best new additions to the 40 volt one. This one So this one is tool free. You don't have to remove the handle. Take it off like so. So the guard has a number of holes, as you can see around the ring here. And to put it on the grinder, you push this in, slot this on, like so, then turn it to where you want it. And then when you release this, it will lock in, locked, push it in again, move it around, lock, move it around, lock, wherever you want to have it. So that is much quicker and easier than the previous models. However, there's a rubber O-ring here and 3 of these sprung washer type things. I can't see this is going to last very well at all. I'm not even sure what that rubber one really is for, how necessary that is. But it's it won't be there for long, I can tell you that. It's going to get worn off real fast. And I'm not sure this is the sturdiest design. I've seen better guard designs than this. But it's still an improvement on the previous one, because you can just do it like so. So yeah, that is a big improvement over the 18. So what are my overall impressions of the new 40 volt Max Makita XGT grinder? Well, let's put it this way. Does anyone want to buy an 18 volt one? Right, it's time to take a look at the Makita XGT 40 volt circular saw. This is a 185mm saw. You can put 190mm blades on it also. Better get rid of that thing in the background. It comes with a dust chute and a rafter hook, but you have to attach them yourself. So I just realised it hasn't come with a rip fence. I don't know if they forgot to put it in the box or whether it's just not included. Not the end of the world, I do have quite a few of them. This is the HS003G. The difference between the HS003G and the HS004G is that the 4 has a groove in the base so that you can run your saw along a guide rail. That's quite a handy feature for a lot of people, I am sure. Unfortunately, you can't get that one here yet. The HS002 and HS001 are 165mm saws, which you can't get here either. They're only in Japan at the moment as far as I'm aware. So the rafter hook, as so, it's a hefty thing, but it is somewhat ugly and cumbersome on the front there. So what else is going on with this saw? Well, it bevels of course, and it goes up to 56 degrees. The HS004 only goes to 48 because of that groove in the track and everything. There's a positive stop feature here, which positive stops at 22.5 degrees, 45 degrees, and the full 56 degrees. If I set this to 22.5 degrees, it just turns quite easily. Set that to 22.5 and we release the lever. You'll see, and he drops down to 22.5 degrees. You've got a nice clear red marker there to see your degree mark. You've got the button there for doing your blade, locking your blade, the tool for the blade, same place as the previous model. So, boof, all the standard features that you have on a saw. Base is magnesium, it is painted a different colour from the predecessor model. Locking nut down the front here for your rip fence, which isn't included with this particular one. Standard thumb trigger safety lock on either side of the saw. A light indicator here on the front for when the torque setting changes, I do believe. We'll check that out when we're using it. We've got a hook on the back here to hook a lanyard through. Battery of course goes there, making it a more compact unit than the previous 36-volt one. It has AWS, but mine did not come with a chip. I bought a 6-piece kit and they didn't even give you one single AWS chip, which I think is a little bit mean. So yeah, you can run your dust extractor off that. The individual kit of this appears to come with the AWS chip, just not the 6-piece kit. Cheapskates. So the saw is a 6,000 RPM saw that will change depending on the resistance and the torque settings and stuff as you're cutting. With a 185mm blade on it, you'll get a maximum cut depth of 66mm. If you chuck the 190 blade on, well then you'll get another 2.5mm. While beveling at 45, you can cut at 45.5 deep, or if you chuck on the 190, which would probably be quite handy for the 45 cuts, you'll get 47.5, just a little bit more likely to get through some of that dressed timber. The 45.5 might just miss sometimes. And in case you want to know, at 56 degrees it will cut 34mm deep. It weighs 3,875 grams, nearly 3.9 kgs. With a 4 amp hour battery it weighs 4.9 kgs, or about 4.6 with a 2.5 amp hour. It is of course brushless, has a brake. What else is there to say? I think it is time to go and use it. I'll show you what it looks like with the battery first. Clips on there. Nice and easy, protrudes from the back a small amount. Doesn't stick out the side any further than the motor. Now to make this test more fair and avoid a whole lot of unnecessary comments down below, I am going to be getting another blade for this saw, so bear with me while I wait for that to arrive, and until then we will go check out another tool. Blade has arrived. I ordered this on the morning that we went into lockdown, a few hours before we went into lockdown. It got shipped, and thankfully it did, else I might not have been doing this review when I'm doing it. So we're still in lockdown here, and it's a bit hard to get things delivered. It takes a lot longer than usual. But let's put it on and give it a whirl. While we wait for some batteries to charge, let's have a look at its predecessor. This is the 18x2 36 volt Makita 185mm circular saw. It is, from what I can see, the same saw. It has exactly the same base, just in a different color. It has exactly all the guard, everything in this area, all identical. The fronts are identical. This would be the same if I had got one with this saw, but it didn't seem to come with one. All the stops are the same. The depth of cut is the same. The RPMs are the same. This looks like the same tool, the same mold almost. This one just, of course, has a bit added on the end. The only other thing I can see on the 36 volt that the 40 volt doesn't have is this area here. Now this is the 36, not the new one. So the old one has a battery gauge and a torque light there. So you can push this button and check the batteries. And they're on there, of course, but just charging some up at the moment, so we can put these against each other. So it's all fair and even. 3760, slightly lighter than the 40 volt until you put the batteries on, and then we are looking at pretty much bang on 5 kgs. So about 100 grams heavier. Or if you were using the 2.5 amp hour battery on the other tool, you're looking at about 400 grams heavier. And that weight is without a rafter hook on this model. And that battery is ready to go. So in theory, I'm guessing you can run this one, the old model, the 36 18x2, longer without changing batteries than this one. If you have two 6 amp hour batteries, in theory, you're running 36 volts at 6 amp hour. So you should get 50% more runtime with the old one than you will with the new one at present, because the batteries only go up to 4 amp hour at 36 volts. So you can run the old one 50% longer. But when you change the batteries, you've got to change 2 batteries, so you will have to have at least 4 batteries to run this, whereas you only need 2 to run this. So we have 2 identical blades on there now. We will go put these up against each other. In case you want to know, the blades are Makita FE Cut 24 tooth blades, 185mm. The part number is B-62044. I'll put it out there now. I don't think I'm really going to be able to tell any cutting difference between these 2 tools. The only real difference I feel is going to be just how each tool feels in the hand, whether one feels nicer than the other, just with the weight distribution, that sort of thing. They should cut, as far as I can tell, identically. Well, it's happened before and it might even happen again, and I think it just happened in this video. I might have been wrong. Before we get into that, let's just check these batteries. Makita 40 volt, still saying full charge. And the 218 volts. Hello. Both down a bar. Oh, so I might have been wrong twice. These were fully charged 5 amp hour batteries when we started this test. That's a 4 amp hour. Now the two of these together don't run as a 36 volt 10 amp hour battery, they run as a 36 volt 5 amp hour battery. That's 25% more than this. So I would have expected this to be showing a bar less before this one. Interesting. These, I would have thought, should run the tool 25% longer than this. So maybe the 40 volt is more efficient. Maybe they have jazzed up the motor a little bit, made it a bit more efficient than the old 36 volt one. Have a discussion about that down below in the comments. Tell me what you reckon. The other, me being wrong, but is, yeah, this just felt nicer than the 36 volt. The 40 volt, particularly, I could feel it doing the cross cuts, but particularly when I started ripping, the 40 volt had more power, more torque to get through the ripping cut. I did more cuts than what you saw in the video, and yeah, the XGT had it. Not by much, but by a nose. Percentage wise, hard to say. I don't know. It was maybe 10% better, say 15, 20 at the most. It was definitely better and nicer to use and slightly lighter feeling, and overall just a little bit better. And a quick word about the batteries on these 18x2 tools. They don't seem to drain evenly. I have half a dozen or so of these 18x2 tools, and particularly under heavy load, one battery seems to drain much quicker than the other. So you'll put two fully charged 5 amp hour batteries on, say, and one of them will be dead and the other one will still be showing 2 bars. So they don't seem to drain evenly, and I'm not sure if I've spoken about it before. I've spoken about it a few times with people in the comment section, but I'm not sure if I've done it in the video. So that is another reason why this one may conk out long before the 40 volt, as you still have quite a bit of charge potentially left in one of the batteries. I'm going to do a little bit more with these tools before I make my final summary. Right, I don't know how much later it is from when I last videoed, but I changed the blade over on the 40 volt and tested it some more against the 36 volt. They're good, these Epicut blades. I don't know how many cuts this one's done, but as you can see, all the colour's worn off. And they stay sharp for ages. They're good little blades for the price and everything. They're certainly the best blades that I can think of that have ever been made by a tool manufacturer. Those sort of things always used to be complete rubbish, but yeah, Makita have finally nailed it on the head with those. They are good blades. I'll put a link down below if you want to find out more information about the blades. It's a good tool. I like it. Even with this blade on, it was still better than the 36 volt. I've done cuts through, I've done quite a bit more ripping through pine and stuff, just testing them, and I've been cutting VIDS hardwood with it, and it's a good tool. And you would have seen this tool being used in the testing that I did the other day. This is the top 18 volt one. Wow, I think it still is, basically. It's the most popular 18 volt one for the last couple of years now. It is the DHS 680. I've forgotten what the North American number is for it. I shall put it on the screen now. It is a great little tool. It's a 165mm tool, and it's the circular saw I use the most. And many Makita owners have one of these in their kit. It did not stand up against the big boys, as you saw. But it's still a great little tool. It's so much lighter. This is sort of, I don't know, at least about a kg and a half lighter than the other two. and is great for when you're up a ladder, chopping off end of rafters, that sort of thing. I just thought I'd throw it in there just so you could see the difference between the 18 and the 36 volt tools, power wise. Even though I know this isn't a 185mm blade, but you know, complain down below. So the 18x2 model number wise is DHS781, if you want to know. But it might be going on an online auction site because I will be keeping this one. If I already had this, which of course I did, but let's hypothetically say I'm you for a minute, and you already have this, and you ask, Tools, is it worth me upgrading to the new 40 volt? Is that way better than this? It is better, but I wouldn't change to the 40 volt platform just for the circular saw. Definitely not. There's not a big enough jump in power to this one, from this one to that one. So if you've got one of these, stick with it. The DHS781, North American version. Having said that, I'm keeping this one. It's always a special thing getting a new rotary hammer drill. You look at it and you think, whoa, can't wait to use that. And you look at it knowing it is never going to look that good ever again. One of those tools, from the first time you use it, it looks like you've had it for years. This is rated as a 28mm drill. 28mm is like an inch with another 1/8 of an inch stuck on top of that. There are 4 different models. This is the HR001G. There's also the 002, 003, 004. From what I understand, the 001, this one, and the 003 do not have a removable chuck. You cannot change it over for a standard chuck. If you want to put a standard chuck in this, you've got to get an SDS plus one and shove it in the end. And also the... Are you kidding me? Right, so where was I? The HR001, which is this model, and the HR002 both have the AWS, and I think the 3 and the 4 don't. I think that's how it works. So the 1 and the 3 have the single chuck. The 2 and the 4 have the removable chuck. The 1 and the 2 have the AWS. And the 3 and the 4 don't. I think. I may be wrong. I'm sure you'll attack me down in the comments if I am. They are all rated as 28mm drills, so they're essentially all the same, just with a couple of little tweaks to the not so necessary features, you might say. But as for drilling in concrete, they're all the same. I much prefer the look of this tool over the 36 volt. By 36 volt I mean the 18x2. That's quite a bulky, chunky looking thing. This one is a lot more compact looking. I'm not sure if it is actually that much more compact, but it just looks nicer. As you may have noticed, it has a variable speed dial from 1 to 5. That's good, no 6. It has drill mode. Drill and hammer, hammer, and the dot is where you put it when you want to turn a chisel to get it on the right orientation before you whack it into hammer mode. It comes with a side handle, of course, which has supposedly quite good vibration dampening built into it. I can see it's quite different, as you can see. Moves around quite a bit. Has a depth gauge, which is steel, and has this locking button on the side here. Quick, easy, set your depth and go. Like I say, it has the AWS. This one hasn't got a chip in it at the moment. It has AVT, Advanced Vibration Technology. I don't know if that's what it stands for, but that's probably what it is. Oh, what's AFT? Advanced Technology. It has a nice bright light on the front. It has, oh, I just remember what AFT stands for. I think. Yeah, Advanced Feedback Technology. Is it feedback? Yeah. Don't you love marketing wank? On the front here we have this funny looking area here, and you think, well, what's that there? Well, if I push this button under here, you'll see that open, and you'll see, come on you bastard you. In there you can see some electrical connections so that you can power a dust collection system on the front here. So all 4 of them have this option, I do believe. So you slide it on the front, as you slide it on, it pushes the button up, locks in there, powers itself up, so it's a powered vacuum sort of system with a HEPA filter and what have you, with all the doohickey that comes up here to collect the dust from your drill bit. As well as that, you also have this ring on the front here, which you can use for one of those dust cups that goes up over the chuck and over the drill, or a dust thing with a extractor on the side, those sorts of things. They lock onto this ring at the front here, and this back ring is where your side handle locks onto. Like I say, this is not a removable chuck, so you just pull back to put your bit in, and that's it, away you go. That freewheels. I'm not 100% happy with the flimsy feeling plastic on this. They're often rubbery, but this one's plastic. You can see a lot of dodgy coloured stuff under there. Oh, it's a day for things going off. But anyway, that means my ribs are ready. So we're going to have to come back and finish this later. It's hard to beat beer and ribs. Anyway, I am... Oh, you must be joking. Note to upcoming YouTubers. Leave your phone somewhere else when you're filming. Stick it under a rock or something. Right, now where are we up to on this wintry, wet, horrible, cold old evening that is out there? I'm battling through for you guys. So I've just about shown you everything on here, I think, apart from maybe the hook. As you can see, rafter hook, one of these sort of sprung sort of design, whatever you want to call that. Boing boing. So now I guess we need to take it for a spin. But maybe we'll just have a quick look at it up against its predecessor first, just for size comparisons and that sort of thing. And then we'll put the 2 of them up against each other test-wise. This 18x2 36 volt tool is rated as a 26mm concrete drill and 13mm in steel, which is the same as the 40 volt. And I think they're both rated as 32 in timber. It has all the same dealies here. This one has the removable chuck, so that you can stick on a standard 3-jaw chuck. As you can see, that makes it substantially longer. We'll go freestyle with the camera to look at the sizes here. It's a little bit tricky to sort of compare, but if we go from that front point there, you can see the actual footprint. The total length is the same. This one does not have the dust feature that this one has, and somebody's already written in the comment section, no doubt, that this won't be a fair comparison because this tool, But I'm not going to go out and buy the brushless model just for this comparison. If you want to do that, fine, but hey, this is going to be close enough to show you what the old ones were like compared to the new ones. If you're not happy with that, well, you know what to jump off. This old beast was a great tool and I love it, but some of the other features it doesn't have compared to the new one is it doesn't have variable speed, although I don't know how much I'll use that. We'll see when I start using it. The vibration dampening on this is not going to be as good because it's just this pissy little bit at the front here, which hardly moves, whereas this one you've got it all the way down the whole front of the tool, which is a much better design. This one does not have AWS as well, so you can't hook it up to any dust extraction system automatically like you can with this one. Doesn't come with a rafter hook. It does come with a side handle, of course, although it doesn't have the locking mechanism on the depth gauge. It sort of locks when you turn the handle. Now the numbers are the same for all 4 drills. I don't know why they really needed to do 4. Couldn't they have just done 2? Couldn't they have just done 1, you know? 1 with a removable chuck and AWS. I mean, how big a difference is the price in that going to be? I bought this one because it had this removable chuck. But having said that, I've only ever used the drill function on it probably 2 or 3 times because I don't need to, because I've got plenty of other drills. I don't want to be changing chucks on this. So the numbers for all 4 of the drills are 5,000 wax a minute and RPM of 980. If you're not used to these sort of drills, they are much slower than a standard hammer drill like this. These can do a couple of thousand RPM, whereas this one is only 980, like I say. But you don't need the speed with these. because they have such a good movement in the way that they work. We'll talk about that after I've done some tests with this. I'll show you the mechanism, how the drill bits work compared to an old school standard drill. With this 4 amp hour battery on it, she's pretty long. She's 373 millimeters long. And as for the weights, I have got a battery for the thing now, but I haven't got it right here on me, so we will do that after we've done some tests. But first, a word about the batteries I use when I'm testing tools. Because I do a lot of tool review testing now, I have batteries I use just for that purpose. This 5 amp hour just came a few hours ago from Makita. Buy 6-piece 40 volt kit, get a free 5 amp hour 18 volt battery. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I do a lot of reviews, and so I buy a lot of kits. They come with batteries. I use the batteries for tool reviews, for around half a dozen tool reviews per set of batteries. Then that set of batteries gets put into my general rotation of batteries for using the tool for jobs, and then get the next lot of fresh ones. They replace those, just the cycle goes on, and every now and again I sell a few off. So that's how that works. So the batteries are never very old. I try and keep some of each sort of battery in here. The 40 volt ones, of course, are all brand new, so that doesn't really matter. Now I want to drill through something fairly thick, but the world being the way it is at the moment makes some of that a little bit tricky. But I found this slab of concrete here, an old bit of concrete that's been ripped up. So this is 115 millimeters deep, and I'm going to go and chuck this on top of some concrete outside that's in situ, and that'll give us a depth of close to 200. I think it's about 75 the bit out there, so we'll get to 190-ish. So this drill bit should be fine for going through that. The first test we'll use a 10mm Hilti bit. And if all keeps going to plan and this bit of concrete doesn't shatter, we'll then go up to a 16mm Hilti bit. And we'll finish off with a couple of 12mm Makita bits, side by side, see how that goes. 18, 40, lock and load. .40 has reached the bottom, 18 not yet, 40. They appear to be using batteries at a roughly the same rate. 2 5 amp hours on here, 4 amp hour on here, 18 650 cells, 21 700 cells. Now if you have one of these drills and you have a wife, at some point she's going to ask you to drill a hole through a bloody pebble. Don't ask me why. Women just like putting holes through pebbles so they can stack them and thread them on shit and stuff like that. So we'll give that a go. There's a bit here I've never even used by the looks. That's a 10mm. We'll use that, and we'll try out the variable speed setting here, and we'll see how we go drilling through a Kiowa River pebble. We'll start off on the lowest speed. Now, as you can see, that's working.
I'm hardly putting any pressure on this tool at all, and it just slowly chips away. Rotary hammers are great like that. I think we'll crank it up a bit. Got our hole started there now. We'll wind her up to level 2. Not a lot of difference in speed there. Now we'll go 3. So quite an obvious jump in speed there. The drill is now powering through that rock. Level 3 on this particular job would be perfect. But we'll keep going anyway. So we'll go up to level 4 on this dial. Oh, we've blown the arse out of it. So we might have got a bit too carried away there on level 4. Should have stuck with level 3. But there's where the variable speeds could come in handy if you're doing things that aren't quite normal, or if you're drilling into something fairly soft, like say concrete blocks, that sort of thing, rather than solid concrete. So I'll have another go with a different rock, and we'll see if we can get all the way through cleanly on say level 2 or 3. If you are drilling in pebbles or rocks or anything like this, ideally you want to find a piece of ground that sort of molds to the shape of it. Oh, look at that, like that, perfectly, so that there's no pressure on the rock to make it snap in half. It's all well supported. It is of course a variable speed trigger as well, so you can have it on 5 and just slowly pull. Like so. Anyway, we'll try it on between 2 and, well, just under 3, see what happens. Actually going to slow that down a little bit more, take it right down to 2. How did we do this time? Let's take a look. Still blew it out a little bit, but that'll be fine for stacking rocks.
So I just did a vibration test for these. I didn't record that. I just stuck the chisels in and held them for 30 seconds in one spot in a piece of concrete where I knew it wouldn't break, and just pushed down just to feel the vibration. I need to clear this bench off a bit and make this a bit easier on the eye. Right, I'm going to go and review some footage and then I'll be back. There were some things that were fairly obvious to me as I was using them, other ones I want to have a look at the footage before I make my final sum up. Concrete drilling's messy. I have weighed them and the 40 volt comes in at just over, oh man, just over 4.2 kgs, whereas the 36 volt comes in bang on 4.8. So essentially, if you take one of these batteries off, this one will be the same weight as this one. Won't work, but it'll be the same weight. Now, how many among you noticed the speed difference of these drills? I told you all about this drill and the 3 other models in the 40 volt range, and they run at 980 RPM, 5,000 beats per minute. This drill also runs at 5,000 beats per minute. But the observant among you may have noticed this runs a little bit quicker. As you can see, quicker. This one also breaks a lot faster. 980, this one 1250 RPM. So this one is 5,000 impacts a minute, this one is 5,000 impacts a minute, yet this one is nearly 300 RPM slower. But as you have seen in the video thus far, this one is quicker. Slower, but quicker. Drilling with the 10mm or 3/8 inch bit, this was around 3 seconds faster than this. When we ramped it up to a 16mm bit, this was 10 seconds faster. 10 seconds! That's a big difference. Unfortunately, I don't have any bigger drill bits, and it's just too difficult to get them quick enough at the moment. So we'll have to leave it with that. If I get some bigger drill bits, some 25+mm drill bits, then we'll compare these again. But I may have sold one by then, who knows. Which one will I sell? When it came to using chisels, this one was noticeably better also. When it comes to vibration, I did a test as I mentioned, and this handle makes a big difference. This vibration dampening handle makes a bigger difference than I thought it would. Often those sort of things don't seem to do bugger all. But it was significantly better in my left hand. This one I had tingly hand, this one I wasn't feeling the vibrations through it. So overall, vibration wise, comfort of use, the 40 volt much better. I just prefer the feel of the 40 volt too. It just feels nice. It feels more the right shape and size of drill than this funny shaped cumbersome big thing. I mean, that's a personal sort of thing, but it definitely felt better. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you are new to rotary hammer drills, let me quickly just show you the drill bits. They have grooves in the shaft, and these need to be oiled because the drill bit slides up and down this groove. A ball detent sits in here, and this goes boom, 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 boom. That's why these drill so much faster than a standard hammer drill, which works on a completely different system, which I'll talk about in another video one day. I have touched on it in the past, but I need to do a remake of that video. And when it comes to putting them into the chuck, they're very similar to an impact driver, where you just poke it in. Done. Sliding backwards and forwards, that's perfectly normal. That's how you get the percussion to cut through your concrete. And then when you want to take them out, just like an impact driver, pull back and out it pops. Because there's so much quick friction on these, you need to add a bit of grease on there. You can buy specific grease. This is an SDS plus drill bit. That is the name given to the diameter of the shaft here and the configuration of these slidey uppy downy bits. There's also SDS, which was the predecessor to this, and SDS Max. SDS Max will not fit in one of these drills, but SDS will, as well as SDS Plus. So always make sure you put some grease on your bit first, get it into those grooves, and then shove it in your tool. If you're using the bit all day, make sure you periodically take it out and grease her up again. It's good to have greasy bits, unless it's a medical condition, of course. So the decision on this one is a little bit easier than the reciprocating saw. I'm afraid this one is a goner. So that's my take on the new Makita XGT 40V Max HR001G rotary hammer drill. I'll be keeping this. It's a good drill. It's a marked improvement on the one I had. How much of an improvement it is over the newer 18x2 models, I don't know. I don't have one to test. And how good it is over the 18V ones, once again, I don't have one to test. But it's certainly an improvement on the one I had, and I will be keeping it. For years this was the top Makita drill. This is a hammer drill or combi drill. It is the DHP 481 or the XPH 007, I think. No, just 07. Yeah, not a Bond drill. It has 125 Newton meters, depending on where you look. Other places 115. Makita have been a bit vague about it over the years. Somewhere between 100 and 125 they've advertised it as over the years. It's been around a long time. A lot of people have been calling for an upgrade to this tool. And a lot of other tool companies have made tools that are now stronger than this one. But for a long time this was as good as cordless drills get. Until today. This is the new Makita 40V HP001G. It has a peak torque rating of 141 Newton meters. It is rated to drill hole saws up to 152 millimeters. That's huge. And 50 millimeter auger bits. It is said to be 35% faster than the 18 volt equivalent you just saw. As you can see, it's quite small in the hand. It's much shorter than the previous model. It has a ridiculous amount of settings down here on the clutch. The electronic clutch has 41 torque settings in the low mode and 21 in the highest gear. And they are the biggest difference with this drill over the predecessor. More on that in a minute. Like I say, it is a hammer drill, so it has a hammer function, obviously, the screwing function, which is what all the torque settings are for, and drilling. Personally, with the 18 volt model, I mainly use this drill for drilling. For screwing, I use an impact driver, and for hammer drilling, I use a rotary hammer drill. That might change somewhat with this tool when we have a look at some of the other features. It has a 2-speed gearbox. It is rated for 20mm drills in steel and 20mm in concrete. That's huge for a combi drill. I say combi drill, that's what they call it over in the UK. Here we call it a hammer drill. Some places it even gets called an impact drill. That seems to confuse a lot of people between one of these and one of these. Oh, not yet. Comes with a ridiculously long handle, same as the last drill did, but this one has a bit more meat around this area that holds it on, and the shaft is much more substantial. The length has been achieved by the space saving in this region of the tool. The old school 18 volt. The clutch settings are mechanical on here. As you can see, you turn them around from 1 to 21. So that area there is no longer on the new tool because it is an electronic version down here. So that's basically sort of the reason why they've saved in the length. As you can see, the new one is slightly higher than the old one, but it's down to the battery being bigger. The tool itself is no bigger. With the batteries on, 2,466 grams, nearly 2.5 kgs, and the new 40 volt, 2,689 grams, nearly 2.7 kgs. So substantially heavier, sort of 250 grams heavier. Feels quite nice though, I have to say. Even with my left hand it feels good. And they say it feels different with your left hand, feels like someone else, but it feels good. So as I say, I don't usually use the clutch settings, but I might start doing it with this drill because she's got a few tricks up her sleeve. To activate this area down here, you need to put it into screw, like so. You'll now see numbers down the bottom. We are in the second gear. So the numbers are designed so as you're holding it, if you're holding it in your right hand, you look down and the numbers are up the right way. You don't look at the drill from the front to see the numbers, you look at it from the back. So 21. You then, to move them, push the unlock button. Green light will come on. You can then cycle through the numbers. Now, unlike the old school model, where every setting from 21 right down to 1, the speed doesn't change. On this one, however, the speed does change, so you have way more control if you're trying to do small screws. So, if we put this on 21, plenty of power. Put it down onto 1, and the tool is electronically controlling the speed. So let's go. We're on 1. Let's go 2. Slightly different. 3. Different again. 4. We're now up to 10. I think from about 10 onwards it's the same. No, maybe. No, they are still changing. Now on 21. So it's running at the same speed from 16 to 21. Below that, you could hear it change through every single setting. So rather than just have the clutch setting controlling when the drill stops driving your screw, you have that speed control as well. So that's quite good. It's much more useful than the old-fashioned way, which I just thought was a pain in the bum, to be honest, and impact drivers are just so much better. Now that's on gear 2. When you put it on first gear and you have it on screw mode, all of a sudden 41 settings. 41. Let's just try them out here. Flat out. And finally, gear 1. In the first gearbox setting, you get changes from 1 up until 12 in the clutch settings, and then from 13 up to 41, same speed the whole way. Whereas in the higher setting, you get from 1 to 16, you get changes in speed, and then from 16 to 21, it seemed all the same. I will put the extended version of me going through all these clutches one by one on my other channel if you want to see those. Both of the tools come with a Yukiwa. I don't know if that's how you say it. Somebody will correct me, I know. Chuck. And they're sort of locking chucks, if you're not aware of these. They're single-handed locking chucks. Now, this one has never worked all that great. This new Makita one is a bit better. It's a slightly shorter unit as well, the chuck. So if you have it completely open as it is now, nothing in it, you try and turn it, and that clicking, it's the clicking you want when you're doing the last little bit of tightening. So if it's doing that, if you're unaware of how to change it, you just go like that, and then it turns freely. And then when your bit is in it, you can then do the final couple of clicks. Although so many of us will really not notice that much because we take the bits in and out just like so. So you don't really worry too much about the chuck tightening. Anyway, enough talk, let's go do some damn drilling with this thing. We'll try one of these 1-inch speed bore bits with both of the tools, the 18 and the 40 max. By the way, 40 volt max, in case you don't know, in case you're thinking what's different between a 40 and a 36, nothing at all, just marketing. I would like to try something bigger than this, but we are currently in lockdown here, and Bunnings and all those sort of places are all closed. There's nowhere I can rush out and grab a bigger self-feeding drill bit, so that's a bit of a bugger. But I could use a hole saw, but as you know, hole saws, they bog up. It's not a very good test because they're going to bog up at different times, and it's going to be a pain in the butt to test that. However, I do have this evil looking Force-Nibbit. This is a 100mm or 4-inch redos of nasty Force-Nibbit. I think I'll try this with the 40 volt first, just in case I bugger it on the 18 volt and we don't get to test it on the 40. Might leave that till last. I guess we better chuck in some screws and things as well, check out some of these settings down here, see how they all function. There's a lot to be done. Oh, I never gave you the numbers. As written on the tool, 39,000 beats per minute for the hammer drill. On gear 2, on gear 1, 9,750. On the gears for drilling, on the lowest gear, 650 RPM, and on the highest, 2,600. By comparison, the old one is 2,100 RPM and 31,500 on the beats for the highest setting.
It's a 4x3 treated post with a Corolla in the background. Shut up! Just for comparison. But before you can use one of these Forstner bits like this in a hand drill, you first need to do a starter hole in something like a drill press. Shit! Can you see that there? Let's go back into the light. Poked before we even begin. Here's the lesson here, boys and girls. Don't buy cheap shit from China. So here is one of my test rigs. We're a shade under 400 millimeters, 16 inches, and we're going to be drilling with this 12 millimeter half-inch drill bit, auger bit. I will now compare the electronic clutch on the new drill with the old school one on the 18 volt DHP 481. I'll start off with some 32mm jib board screws, plasterboard screws, drywall screws, gyprock screws, whatever you want to call them. Plasterboard screws is what they are. They will all be driven in the screw setting on both tools in gearbox 1 to begin with, and I'll start on setting 1 on each one and we'll see how we do. I'm not going to go through every single setting because there's 62 on this drill alone and 42 on this one, so this video would be 4 hours long and none of us want that.
Now, unlike the old version, I still have my finger on the trigger. It cuts out. The electronic clutch cuts out rather than doing the da-da-da-da-da. Okay, we'll now go up to 5. It's gone just below the surface with the old one, and the new one, 40 volt, stopped. Pretty much exactly the same level, but just stops outright. That's quite nice. I prefer that feature to that annoying And one of the reasons I never used the 18 volt force screwing is just too annoying. Let's try some bigger screws. I am screwing into a stack of pine measuring approximately 115mm thick. Now going to drive some 10 gauge 50mm stainless steel screws, and we will start with the 5 setting on gearbox 1, 18 volt drill. Let's go. Okay, it doesn't quite get it in on that level. We'll take it up to 7. Take it up to 8. Well, let's go 9. Isn't that a lovely noise? It's almost flush, so we'll take this one up to 9 also. Push the button. Man, they're pretty similar in setting. Yeah, the settings are very similar to the old model, which is good if you're used to certain numbers for certain things. They should be pretty much the same. Next up, 10 gauge 65mm screws. We'll start on setting 12. That was about perfect. See if this one's the same on 12. Oh, look at that. That's good. I like that. Much quieter, much simpler, easier to control. The speed sort of controls itself. Unlike this one where you've just got the 1 speed setting. What have we got next? Next up, 12 gauge 65mm. We've got the settings on 15. Oh, look at that, just stopped perfectly flush. Fantastic. Right, full on batten screws now, I reckon. Right, starting to get into the big stuff. We have 14 gauge galvanized 75mm long batten screws. We will start on level 17, gearbox 1. Man, they stop in exactly the same place. It's brilliant. 100mm 14 gauge stainless batten screws. Let's ramp up the settings to 19. No holes, of course, drilled for any of these, as you can see. Didn't quite get that one right. Should have gone to 20. We'll do this one on 20. Ooh. Didn't make it in either. Actually didn't even go as far as the last one, I don't think. Each one of those stops was not me taking my finger off the trigger, it was the tool stopping by itself, so that's good. It can just do those last couple of pulses to get it flush. Very good. Okay, the next size screw is going to go through my test bed and into my bench. But we have to give it a go, don't we? So let's go 125mm. And we'll crank this right up to 21. We'll crank this one up to 21. So that's about as far as that one can go. So we've stopped short. But like I say, you can do that last little bit. Now that's the end for this one, top setting. This one still has another 21 to go. And that's just on gear 1 of the 2-speed gearbox. On gear 2, another 21. So this one, 42 settings, this one's 62. I will now try it on, say, something in the middle. Let's go about 30. Let's go 31. And I will drive, see if I can drive 150 mil straight through this bench. 40 volt, setting 31, gearbox setting 1, 150 millimeter batten screw. Well, there we go. I actually had to take my finger off the trigger then, so I didn't do myself an injury. So on level 31, it drove that no problem. So 41, well, it's hardly even necessary, you would think. What this is going to be able to do is actually drive screws on the screw setting, no matter what size they are by the looks. Whereas this is limited, as you saw. That was as much as it could do. And after that, what I usually do is just have it in drill setting to put in big screws. And that's one of the reasons I never really used this and preferred using an impact driver. Not yet. This is much more useful, I feel, for putting in screws. The drill one, it's all or nothing, you know. When it catches on anything, it's just going to spin you around. Right round, baby, right round. And the screw setting will help prevent that with the clutch. So even if you're on maybe the higher settings in the 30s to 40, it will, because it has a electronic kickback feature, if it catches and tries to jerk round, it should, in theory, cut out so you don't do yourself an injury. Here's a couple of screws I drove in the drill mode a few days ago. This is the largest screw I have available. I can't go and get anything bigger, we're in lockdown, but I think this will prove the point. This is a 280mm long galvanized 10mm thread diameter landscape screw. I'm going to have to go modify my rig to drive this in, because this one here is a little bit short. Right, let's lock and load. Gearbox speed 1, torque setting 41. That cut off by itself. Absolutely perfect. Can it get it back out? Same settings. Piece of piss. Right, let's wrap this up like Friday night's fish and chips and give you a verdict on what I think about the new 40 volt max hammer drill, combi drill. I find it a lot easier to quickly see what gear you're in with the new tool, with the big number 2 in white there on the top. Much easier than this with the very hard to see numbers, and sometimes you at a glance, depending on which tool you grab and which one you're used to, hard to know which gear it is actually in. The 18 volt is a good drill. It's been a staple for many Makita users for a long time now, but I think its day is done. The HP001G is the bee's knees. It's the bomb. It's the shit, man. It is one awesome mother of a drill. And as I'm summing up this drill, I've just realized I've made a glaring omission. It's great for drilling. It is great for driving screws. I haven't checked the concrete drilling yet. I haven't used it in hammer mode. Dope! Is this video going to get longer, or shall I save it for the next one?
11mm drill bit, 18 volt. $11mm on the 40 volt.
And after doing that, I am reminded why I always use a rotary hammer to drill in concrete. Now, some people will already be typing in the comment section, you should use these for masonry, not concrete. It doesn't matter what I drill into, you're going to complain. I've drilled into clay, bricks, concrete blocks, solid concrete. Every time I drill into something, I get somebody in the comment section who has a problem with it. And you can't win against those people. So anyway, looking forward to this rotary hammer drill, the new 40 volt review coming soon. So let's end this thing. I don't know how many weeks I've been recording this for now. We're up to, what's the date? Oh yeah, I've had this 3 weeks now. Let's finish it off. This video is probably already 3 hours long, I don't know. Many nights of editing ahead. It's a fantastic drill. I love it. I'm not going to be using it in the hammer mode, so I don't care what that's like. But, I mean, it shakes the daylights out of you. I know some of you will say, oh, you're doing it in the wrong speed and everything. Yeah, I tried doing it on speed 1 and, you know, it takes a millennia.
Speed 1, 11mm, 40 volt.
If you just want to drill small things in concrete, little 6mm holes and stuff like that, piece of cake. But as for the bigger stuff, get a rotary hammer. The screw settings are fantastic. There's so many settings on there. I mean, you're not going to use probably 80% of them, but once you've found the ones you like for your particular application, your particular job that you do, then it's great. It's got so many options that you're bound to find something that suits you down to the ground. Forgot to mention earlier, I think that, you know, it comes with a depth stop. Solid metal one as well, not one of those crappy plastic ones that some tool companies give out. When it comes to drilling, it's an absolute beast. I haven't got anything really bad to say about it. I don't know if it's the most powerful cordless drill around. Somebody will tell me what that is in the comment section, no doubt. Milwaukee will get a mention, of course, as will DeWalt. The big thing people want to know about these 40 volt tools is, are they a huge improvement? Is it worth upgrading? Because most of the guys that are going to buy these already have these. They already have the 18 volt line, of course. So they want to know, you guys want to know, is it worth upgrading to the 40 volt stuff? For this particular tool, I would say 100%. Is it twice as good? Is 36 volts twice as good as 18 volt? No, it's not. It's never going to work like that. But it is a vast improvement. The features down here on the electronic clutch, fantastic. The extra drilling power is fantastic. It is a great tool, and I imagine I'm going to use it more than I use the 18 volt because those screw settings are so good. Be great for driving in larger screws, big batten screws, landscape screws. That's another of the Makita 40 volt max tools ticked off. While I tell you all about this tool, we will compare it to its predecessor, the 36 volt 18 volt by 2 Makita Reciprocating Saw. And it looks something like this. As you can see, they look very similar in size. If you count the shoe, they're basically the same, except the 40 volt battery sticks out the back a bit more. If you have the 2.5, won't stick out quite as much, but I've got the 4 amp hour on it. The 40 volt is the tool on the left. When you look at these two tools side by side, you can see some differences where Makita have learnt from this model and improved for this model, or perhaps improved. First we'll just look at what's the same. The trigger type area is the same with the first and second speeds and the lock in the middle. This is the 18x2, and as you can see the 40 volt is the same. They have removed the TPE overmolding from this point here on the tool, which is a good idea because they've got this stupid little strip here, and as you can see it just pings out. Somehow I've managed to keep it on the tool, it hasn't completely torn off. The rafter hooks are basically identical. This one, however, though, is black and slightly thinner gauge material. I can't check the weights right at this moment because we're in lockdown and the battery has just died on the scales, so I'm not 100% sure which one weighs the most, although holding them kinda a giveaway, and I'm thinking that the old one weighs a little more than the new one. But to be 100% sure on the weights, we will have to wait until I can get a battery. See that here's a little play of words there. Classic stuff. Where the batteries go on, there is no mitigation for vibration on this one, whereas this tool has this funny looking bit, almost like it was added on later as an afterthought, as if this was the 18 volt tool and they've just added on this bit to hold the 40 volt battery instead. But it does actually move around a little bit as well. It's a bit hard to see on the camera, but it's a little bit of vibration mitigation there for the battery. Vibration wise overall, they're pretty damn similar. If anything, I would have said this one was slightly more vibratey. For most of this video I will be referring to this as the 40 volt and this as the 18 volt, just because it's easier for differentiation, seeing as they're both 36 volt tools. I know this is going to cause mental anguish for some of you. Please bear with me. They both come with an adjustable shoe that requires no tools. However, I know some of you will now be yelling at the screen because a lot of you in North America, I think it was, got these without the adjustment. The first batch of them that came out in America, I think it was America, didn't have the tool-free adjustment. Now, as for the tool-free adjustment on the 36 volt one, as you can see, a bit rattly on it. Not the greatest design. They have improved markedly on this one, and there is little movement on this one. It's a similar sort of latch system, but a bit smaller. So this is where I had it for the tests, and the maximum mark is marked there, so you have it about there. That's as far out as the shoe goes, but much sturdier when it is locked in. Still a little bit of vibration though. This one clicks through each motion. And I think you can click it right out there. Yeah, you can. So this one, slightly different. You can have it all the way out there. But as you can see, the shaft that drives the blade actually sticks out quite a bit from the end of the actual saw. Whereas the new model doesn't stick out at all, just a whisker. So that's kind of good on a safety front, but that means you have to have a different way of inserting the blades. I like the system on the old reciprocating saw. As you can see, I've taken the shoe off just to make it better view for the camera. You'd put the blade in, bang, clicks in, easy, do it like that, pops out. In, bang, out, in, out. Dead simple. Although a little bit tricky sometimes with the shoe in the way and if this is in too far. So I'm guessing that's why they modified the thing. Plus, this easily gets damaged, and once that's completely damaged, much harder to get the blade in and out. Having a look at the 40 volt, once again I have removed the shoe, and they have tried to go with the same system. But instead of controlling it from the end, because this stays inside, you control it on the side. Now, same theory, you push the blade in and it locks in. Except, it takes so much pressure to push it in that you're likely to cut yourself or something. Then when you release it, pull up the side, and same as the other one, it fires it out. The main problem I'm having with this one is, after you do release it, it doesn't always catch to make it easy for you to put it in the next time. It may loosen up and come right, but it's A, hard to get in, like that, and B, you go like that, it doesn't always, see this is coming back? You see that on there? So now if I try and put it in, it won't go in at all. You've got to make sure you push it right up to the top until it clicks. And then, yeah, still really tight. So if you do it just to the point where it releases and then let go, you won't be able to pop it in the next time without pushing this up again. So you have to push it right up every time. The other issue I have is sometimes it's jamming. It's getting shit in here already, just in the few times I've used it. Not too difficult for shmoo to get in there, and then, you know, bit of schwarf or a bit of dust, sawdust, and this is going to jam. As it was earlier, but won't now do on camera, of course. So I like the idea of what they've done here, but I'm not sure the implementation has really been good enough. Which is a shame. There is, of course, a light on the 40 volt. It's a bit bigger and brighter and underneath the blade, whereas it was above the blade on the previous model. They are rated the same in terms of length of stroke, both at 32mm and at the strokes per minute, with both models doing up to 2300 strokes on the lower speed and 3000 on the higher speed. Seeing as I can't weigh it, I have looked, and Makita say this model is 4 kgs without the batteries. This one is 4.2, but this battery is 1 kg, these two put together are 1.2. So with that, we can surmise basically exactly the same way. But is there any advantage in speed? Well, Makita say that this will cut 35% quicker through timber than this, and about 10% quicker through metal. Why the difference? Why 35 in wood and 10 in metal? Maybe due to the fact that you should cut in the lower speed for metal and the higher speed can be used for wood. It certainly didn't feel 35% quicker cutting through wood. I'll have to look at the footage. I'd say it was a little bit quicker, but not much. This is a piece of poplar. It is 150mm in diameter. It was cut down almost a year ago, so it's not going to be super soft anymore. So that was a good vibration test, and I'm not impressed with the 40 volt. This next test is cutting on the lowest setting on each saw. This cut is on the highest setting. This is going to be my last test to see if the new 40 volt is 35% quicker or not. I don't have a pair of blades left, unfortunately, that have both not been used, but this one's only cut one bit of wood, and to make it fair I'll put that in the 40 volt, I'll put this in the 18x2, and let's see if the 40 volt is going to smash it or not. 18, 40. 40, 18. So a lot of that might have been down to my hand. So here we go. We're on the highest setting, the 40 volt. 3 cut. volt, highest setting, 3 cuts. Okay, I can definitely feel it there. I'm going to try and stall it. The highest setting. This is the 18 volt. Stall test, 40 volt. 40, 18. Wasn't 35%. Slowest speed this time, 40, 18, and lock and load. 18, 40. As you can see, I'm not as good holding it with my left hand. 40 volt, low speed. 18 volt, low speed. 40 volt, low speed. Yeah, look at that. Damn rain. Well, I'd basically finished that test anyway. Yeah, I know, mate. Right, which is better? Is it worth buying the 40 volt, or should you stick with your 36 volt 18x2? This is a bit of a tricky one, guys. It's not as clear cut as the previous 3 tests. The circular saw, I would keep the 40. The angle grinder and the drill are both upgrades from 18 volt tools, so they absolutely smashed the 18 volt counterparts. I would definitely keep the 40s on those. But as for this, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. This can cut faster through wood. 35% faster is maybe a little optimistic, Makita, but it definitely can cut faster through wood. But I'm not sure I preferred using it. This one I'm much more used to, of course, so that makes it a little bit hard to test. This certainly, you didn't pick it up and go, wow, that's so much better or anything. This I preferred for cutting metal. I've had a few issues with this one cutting metal. With it, it doesn't like doing it at high speed, it cuts out, it jams a lot. I've found this one is much nicer for getting cuts started. It's much nicer on metal, particularly for getting started. This one on steel, but also on timber, it jams and bounces around a lot when you start. If you just want to go bang straight into it, this one does not cope with that sort of cutting very well. This one you can. This one you need to ease into things a bit more. I'm still not convinced about this. The vibrations seem very high on this, certainly no better than this. When you push down really hard, you can feel that this maintains the stroke rate probably a bit better than this one. But most of those tests I was pushing pretty damn hard, unnecessarily hard, not the way you would use it in a real life application. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Let's have a look at battery life there. So well, that's only just from today though, of course. So they're all down 1 bar. If you've got one of these, let me know what you think. If you've got one of these, let me know what you think. If you've got both of them, let me know which one you prefer. I'm not sure. Which one will I keep? I do not know. It's a tricky one. It's definitely a tricky one. If I was cutting metal all the time, I would keep this one. If I'm cutting wood all the time, I would keep this one. But seeing as I use them for both, although probably more inclined towards timber, who knows? Who knows? Sorry, I can't come up with anything a bit more conclusive than that. Time to take a look at the one you've all been asking for. The 18 volt versus the 40 volt in the impact drivers. This is the TD171D, also known as the DTD171, also known as the XTD16. This is the TD001G. That may end up with a different number when they are released in North America, but at the moment that's what it is. Anyone who's a regular to the channel will know I do kinda like impact drivers. I've got a few of them. Ever since I started talking about the 40 volt stuff, this is the tool people wanted to see. This is the matchup people wanted to see. As you can see, size wise, there's not a huge jump. 40 volt is slightly bigger, slightly wider, just a little bit longer. The 18 volt is rated at 180 newton meters. The 40 volt is rated at 220 newton meters. There is lots of different ratings of torque, of course, though. There is peak torque, there's nut busting torque. So that's why I went and bought a torque wrench so we can test some of these things a little bit more accurately. It's only a cheap one, I know, but wasn't going to buy a super duper one just to test tools with. If somebody wants to donate a high-end version, then all good. I might take that up. Until such time though, let's take a look at... Oh, there's just so many features. There's just so many. There's so many settings on this. It's like, where do I start? Those familiar with the 18 volt will know there's 8 different settings down here, which is quite a lot to get your head around. Well, if you thought that was a lot, well, you got a few more on this one. This one has 10. And to be honest, they're not the easiest things to find, especially when they're written in Japanese on this model. These both are Japanese models. If you're sitting there thinking, purple Makita, I've never seen a purple Makita, they must be fake. In Japan, they make different coloured impact drivers for Makita. They do limited edition ones, things like that. Each year they put out a different version of this one, a couple of different colours, limited edition ones. On launch, they put out 4 different colours. This is one of them on launch. This was released in teal, black, red, and purple. But there is also limited edition ones. I have seen a yellow one. Why you'd want a Makita that looks like a DeWalt's beyond me though. Let's put the 18 aside for a moment and just look at some of the numbers on the new one. We have... No, let's not do it like that. Let's actually compare the numbers, don't we? We want to see the difference between the two of these. So the numbers as written on the tools. Okay, the 4 speed settings on the 18 are 1100, 2100, 3200 and 3600. On the 40 volt it is 1100, 2100, 3200 and 3700. For impacts on the 18 it is 1100, 2600, 3600 and 3800. On the 40 it is 1100, 2600, 3600, all same so far. and 4400 on the highest setting. So when it comes to setting number 4, that's the only setting that's any different. It's a little bit faster and it's got a lot more wackies. They both have lights, of course. Pretty similar. In fact, probably exactly the same. The 6 amp hour battery, this is weighing in at just under 1.6 kgs. With a 4 amp hour battery, this is weighing in at just under 2 kgs, nearly 400 grams heavier. This is with the biggest battery though. If you use the 2.5 amp hour, it's 300 less than that, so that would bring it close to this, just under 100 more than the other one. So that's substantially heavier. Let's just weigh the actual tool. 920 grams and 974 grams. They both have glowing bumper rings on the front. I would show it on video, but it doesn't show up all that well. They're both one-handed 6.35mm or 1/4 inch chucks. Makita reckon that this new 40 volt one is more stable than this one. Doesn't wobble around so much. I haven't found that at all. If anything, I would have said this one was slightly better. You can see this one has a bit more meat around it. It's much more steel than in this one. And just like this one is also a bit tight. Now, as well as having 4 standard settings, it also has 6 assist modes, 2 T modes, 1 wood mode, and 3 bolt modes. We will try and test them all out. We'll use this for the bolts, and we'll do other various wood tests and stuff. I don't know what I'm going to test. There's just too many things to test. I've had lots of different requests for things that people want to see between these two tools, and there's just so much to test. I don't know how long this video is going to take me to make, and I don't know how long it's going to end up being. It could be a big one, guys, so make sure you've got a beer or two ready, because let's get into it. Right, before we start this test, I need you guys to give me a bit of a hand. There's a lot of debate about 5 and 6 amp hour batteries. Some people prefer the 5, some prefer the 6. If I happen to be slurring my words, it's because the missus has gone out for the evening and she won't be back for a couple of days. So, you know, the drinks have been flowing and all that. And yeah, hopefully you can still understand what I'm saying. But just yell at the screen now, if you will. Do you want the 5 or the 6? Ready? Go. Oh, 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 oh. Okay, so we'll go with the 6 then. Now I reckon these impacts are going to be pretty similar on settings 1 to 3, being that they're the same speed and the same impact rating, but the 4th setting there's a big jump in the 40 volt, so we'll start straight on level 4 with my standard testing medium, the 14 gauge 100mm button screw, and we'll start there and then we'll work up and down. But let's just see what it'll do in its highest speed with one of those screws. 1840. Bet that's Rob on that bloody text. 3, 2, 1. What the f? So that was surprising. I'm guessing they're going to be pretty similar in the lower range, but when we get up to the bigger screws, this one's going to have the power, the 40 volt. But I may be wrong. It might be a bit of a jip. 125mm. 1. Well, the 40 only just got that, and only right at the end. 150s now. These ones aren't stainless. 1. A little bit better. Now I'll try 200s. These are going to go right through my test stack here and into the top of my bench. We'll probably see another slight increase on the 40 volt with these. 1. .40 volt had the edge, but I tell you what, it's not by much. Right, with these modern impact drivers, there is a lot more to it than just who can smash in a screw the fastest. They have a lot more settings, so let's have a look at some of those. Now, when it comes to the different modes on these things, there's a lot, and it's slightly confusing, especially when you've got the Japanese model. So we have the 4 standard settings. when you want to flick into the next round, you push this blue button on the side here, which brings on the blue light. Then you can cycle 2 rounds through these lights again. Number 1 is wood mode. Picture of a screw, well, not on this one, but on the English version. You then have 2 T modes and 3 bolt modes. We'll go through each of these just driving screws first, just to show you what they will actually do, not the actual function of it, but you know, showing you that it will stop or speed up, that sort of thing. So we're in wood mode, or what I call jet assist mode on my 18 volt. Let's go. So you'll see there it picked up speed as it went along. Once it feels the resistance, it ramps up the torque and just drives that screw on home. Let's put her on the next one along, the first T mode. 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, it stops quite easily. That's because it thinks you're driving through thin gauge metal. It doesn't want to strip out your screws, so it stops. Now on the T2 setting, it's for thicker metal, but we are of course doing it in wood just to show you it's stopping. 3, 2, 1. As you can see, it's not getting quite enough resistance here. If that was metal, it would have been much stiffer and it would have stopped. Next up, we go into the second layer of modes. So we have this number 4 light lit up to show we're in the second level. The blue light is for all the assist buttons, and we're in the first one of that series of those 2 lights. Somewhat confusing, but don't worry, I'll show you a little trick with it in a minute. So these next 3 modes are what are known as bolt modes. Basically, you're putting in machine screws, or you're doing lug nuts, putting nuts on bolts, that sort of thing. When going forward, once it feels the torque and the impact, it will stop. And when you are releasing a screw bolt, it'll start full on in level 4, and as soon as it feels the resistance drop, it will cut out. So there's 3 different settings for that. We will once again drive screws with it just to see what they do. So the first bolt setting, very similar to that T mode, and the second bolt setting, see, it takes just a little bit more resistance to make it stop. And finally, the third bolt setting, carries on a bit longer, just to get that bolt a little bit tighter, that nut a little bit tighter. Back in the first bolt setting, see that it was quite a slow, controlled removal of the screw, and then as soon as the resistance dropped when it was nearly at the end of the screw, it just stopped. So you can use these for more than just bolts if you wished. If you're doing small screws and you didn't want to keep dropping them, you just wanted them to quickly release, these sort of settings, quite handy. The second one, stop there once the screw was pretty much completely out. And then when pulling out in the third setting, just slowed right down by itself there so you don't lose your nut across the room. So those are quite handy. You don't get that with most impact drivers. You might get one of those settings, but you won't get 6 of them. So that is something that the 40 volt has when you're thinking about just the sheer power of an impact driver. It's not just about power, there is all those other features, and depending on what you do for a living and what you use your impact driver for, some of those could be very handy. It is, of course, a variable speed trigger as well. Let's put it on, back on 4. Have you noticed I pushed up there to get it back on 4? Yeah. So with the trigger on this, variable speed, of course, so a lot of guys will just have this on the full 4 all the time, and if you just want to go a bit slower, you'll just half cock the trigger sort of thing. You can just slowly ramp it up. It's a real nice trigger. It's very easy, it's very tactile, and it's smooth, and you don't have to put much pressure on it. Very light, easy trigger to control, unlike some impacts where it actually like hurts your finger. You got to strain almost to hold your finger on it, whereas this, beautiful, feels real nice. It's nicer than the 18 volt. Chuck looks a bit wobbly. Doesn't affect the performance in any way though. We'll now try them both in the wood mode, or what I call jet assist mode. They both sound quite slow. Watch what happens. We'll drive 125mm screws once. Tell you what, this 18 volt impact driver is a good one. The 40 volt, oh, I don't know, she seems to be struggling, doesn't she? Back out. Wow. It's a good little impact driver, this 18 volt. Let's go drill some holes and then we'll come back and we'll test this thing getting some bolts undone. Or some nuts. Or something like that. I'll test out that torque wrench. So that's 4 inches, guys. 100mm. It's a 4x3 treated post with a Corella in the background. Shut up. T1 mode, 2mm steel. That's quite good. That's a lot better than the 18 volt, if I do recall. We'll try one with the 18 volt. T2 mode. So that one's stripped out. That was a little bit too much, but it's only 2mm steel. Maybe if we'd been doing it in 4mm, might have stopped. But that one worked perfectly. And it's stripped out, won't come out. Just a spinning. By comparison, the T mode's on the 18 volt. Pretty similar on T1, T2. Oh, perhaps a bit better than the 40 volt. Hasn't stripped out. I have found that bolt mode 1 is the perfect accompaniment for driving 32mm jib screws into pine. Stops perfect every time. T1 32mm jib screw into pine. Pretty much the same as the bolt one. Slightly more proud, but that might have just been a fluke. Yeah, slightly more proud. Probably be a bit better going into jib, for instance, as is a jib screws want. These aren't what these settings are necessarily used for. I'm just showing you some of the applications you can use because people have been asking me about driving small screws with these powerful impact drivers rather than just smashing in big buggers. On just the first standard setting, a lot of control there. That'd be fine in setting 1 for putting in jib screws if you're worrying about it damaging plasterboard. Plenty of control on that first setting. Now the tool has this quick select mode button on the front here. When you have it on the standard settings, it will cycle through numbers 1 to 4 on your speeds, and you don't have to get your finger and go all the way down to the bottom here. It's right by your trigger finger, so you can just go bang, bang, bang. You can also register one of the other 6 assist modes to this button. To activate it or register it, you need to select the mode you want. We will go to T2. No, that's T1. Let's go T2. So we've got the blue light lit up, number 3 lit up. We then hold down the quick select button and the button that you use for selecting 1 through 4 and turning the light on and off. So you hold those down, so you get the flashing there. That flashing says it's registered. Now I can cycle between the favorite settings I've got here, which is the standard 3 settings. And then if I push the quick select, it will then go to T2 mode. Back to number 3, back to T2. So if you're doing the same functions all day, every day, you can program that so it's nice and quick to change between. You don't have to cycle through everything. It's right at your fingertip. I think the 18 volt does something like that too, but it's all in Japanese and I've never actually worked it out. I've never really tried. I tend to use impact drivers mostly in the highest setting, 4, and just go for it. Use the variable speed trigger to control if you want to go slower. So yeah, I mostly use the 1 through 4. On the 18 volt, I mostly used, like I say, the 1 through 4. I did use the jet assist mode quite a bit. I hardly ever used the bolt modes.
Bolt mode 1. Bolt mode 2. There we go. See how that stopped? Put it back on. Stopped as well. Back off. Stops. Back off. It only needs mode 2 to get these off. That's good. And to put back on.
So with things like lug nuts, the extra torque on the 40 volt really comes into play. My 18 volt, you may have seen it in the reviews I've done on this, and putting it up against some other impact drivers. This can take the lug nuts off my van after I've put them on by hand, but it does have quite a bit of trouble, and it misses, say, it'll only do 3 or 4 out of 5, and it's really got to bang and bang and bang to get them off. Whereas this took them off easily. I've just gone through and tried a whole lot of them, and this one can take them all off on number 2 setting. This one, going flat out, sometimes it misses. This one still has the 3 bolt setting above that, of course.
Three, two, one.
Damn, didn't even do it.
Just about get my finger under there.
But take a look at this.
Smash those boards to bits.
So, as you can see, 40 volt did somewhat better than the 18. One of these screws goes 14 boards deep. Is there a difference between the one made in China and the one made in Japan? I can't find any differences, so I'm not going to show you a whole lot of footage of me driving screws when they're all identical. So they sound the same as well. Everything seems identical, but just to, you know, I know it's going to bug some of you and it's going to bug me. I'm going to pull this one apart just to make sure it looks the same on the inside as the other one. See if it's got that protection with the fuse, that sort of thing. I'm pretty sure these tools are going to be identical though. The Japanese one has IP56 on it and the Chinese one does not. Hopefully that doesn't mean it's not though. Now I've had this one apart before, if you do recall, in the video where we compared the insides with the 18 volt. Let's pop her open again. So there she is. Lots of wires and shit going on in there. Is this one the same? Does it have fuse protection? Is it the same brand switch? Is it the same everything? Let's have a look. I've got to be careful with this one because I want to sell it. And there we go. Looks absolutely identical at first glance. I can see the fuse, the switch has the same numbering on it. Everything looks identical apart from a couple of QA marks like this blue one here and this red one on the other tool. All the wires are the same colours. I should take the English one out of the new model and stick it in my purple ones are pictures. These ones are done in words. Why didn't they put the pictures on there? Then they wouldn't have to make any different ones for different countries. The Japanese one could just look like that. Japanese are still going to know what those symbols mean, surely. Very tempting to swap it over though. Both of them come with a 30 amp car fuse, which is an important thing to remember. If something goes wrong with one of these, open it up, check that first. The mold date on this one is also a couple of months earlier, October 2019, whereas this one is December 2019, and they're of course made up of PA6 nylon with 30% glass. The dates on these parts are different also, and this one has the date of manufacture on the base of the driver near the battery terminal, whereas the Japanese one does not. Out of interest, this was produced in April 2020, whereas this one I know must have been made in about October 2019. Right, I better put it back together and try and sell it. Boy, that was quick. I have managed to get rid of this one already, and I did a bit of a deal with the devil. More on that later in the vid. Well, none of my improvised torque testing rigs have been much success. This is much better though on these higher torque things obviously than the 18, being that it's got 40 Newton meters more torque. But haven't had all that much luck with the torque wrench and getting an accurate reading between impact drivers. And I've just been stripping threads and snapping tools and snapping bolts, and so I've got to get this video out because you're all attacking me in all the comment sections of all the other videos, so we're going to have to leave this one. It's not something that's all that imperative to an impact driver anyway. Most people would be doing these sort of things with an impact wrench, which we'll look at on another video. Anywho, so I better wrap this thing up. I better tidy up before I wrap up. Now, to all of you who have already left comments down below, you can go down and take them out now, saying that you want to see this up against the Milwaukee, because the Milwaukee is the best impact around. Well, never fear. I have the Milwaukee to test against the 40 volt. This is Milwaukee's top of the line Generation 3. No, sorry, Milwaukee is a bit more wank than Makita. The Gen 3 fuel, they come up with all these wanky words because they give it such a shit model number that no one's ever going to remember it. I don't know what the model number is, and I don't care, but it's a Generation 3 fuel, 18 volt though, not 36 or 40. But it's their top of the line impact driver, although I've just seen that they're releasing a Generation 4. Anyway, I've got the best current one as of today. and we're going to put that up against this in the next video. Congratulations for making it this far through the video. Did you know 60% of people will not make it this far? So in summary, what do I make of this new 40 volt Max XGT Makita impact driver? I've had it for bang on a month today. I have been using it instead of the 18 volt. I'm guessing a lot of you from the video are thinking, hey, why would I bother upgrading from my 171 to the new 40 volt? And you know what? I'd have to agree with you. This is good if you need more torque. If you're doing really heavy things all the time, then this will get it done a little bit quicker, and maybe a few times this will miss and not be able to do it, whereas this one will pull through and get the job done for you. But if you already have the 171, if you're already on the 18 volt, you've got the 171 and you're only going to upgrade for the impact driver, don't bother. The impact driver is a good impact driver by itself. If you don't have the 171, if you're upgrading from a lower tool to this, then you're going to think this is shit hot. But if you're used to the 171, there's not a great increase in power and everything, especially for the extra weight you've got to lug around. This battery is a lot heavier than this battery. I mean, these are 600 grams, this is a kg. I understand that they had to have an impact driver ready for launch for the 40 volt max line, but it hasn't been the nice improvement that, say, the Combi drill, hammer drill, and the angle grinder were. They were massive jumps from the 18 to the 36, whereas this one, not so much. I will still be keeping it though, so don't ask if you can buy it or anything, but on a day-to-day basis I think I will stick with the 171. But like I say, it's still a really good impact driver, and if you want to start off with just 40 volt tools, maybe you haven't even tried the 18 volt, you are getting into things now and you want to start with the best you can get, well then you're going to get the 40 volt kit with all the tools, and you're going to get that, and it's a great little impact driver. But don't bother upgrading if you've got that. Right, let's charge this thing. G'day everyone, today we are taking a look at the new Makita 40 volt charger and the 40 volt batteries. Once we've done the 40 volt, we'll chuck this adapter on and we'll see if it can charge an 18 volt Makita battery any quicker than a standard 18 volt charger. So you saw me flatten the battery there at the beginning on the saw. Let's stick this on. This should take 45 minutes according to Makita, so let's give it a whirl. Green flashing light says she's ready to go. Heard two different fans kick in there. Interesting. She's a noisy beast. While we wait, let's see how heavy these batteries are. So, 1012 grams, just a fraction over a kg. And a 6 amp hour 18 volt, just over 600 grams, that is 611 grams. And just by comparison, 1032 grams, so fractionally heavier than that. And that's a flex volt 54 6 amp hour, 60 volt if you're in North America. And just remember, these are 36 volt batteries. It's the same as a 36 volt. 40, 36, they're the same. It's 40 volt max. It's just so you don't get confused with the old 36 volt system. That's a very loud fan. I'm pretty sure it's much louder than the 18s. Well, there we go, 44 minutes, not too bad. Said 45, so she's on the money. Didn't play a little tune. See if we can work out the little tune, eh? Put some more light back on. You heard the two fans change at that. When it finished charging, one of the fans seemed to kick off. See if it's the same designed for starting up the music. Yeah, there we go. Same tunes. Same tunes we all know and love from Makita. There we go. So there you have it, and if you want to know, this is a 144 watt hour battery. Green, not red. The charger has finally got spaces for putting it on your wall. There's the measurement there for it. Now we'll whack an 18 volt battery on. I'm just finishing flattening one outside on the blower. And we'll stick an 18 volt 5 amp hour on, which is meant to take 40 minutes, which is about 5 minutes quicker than the 18 volt charger. Not a huge advantage. So this 5 amp hour depleted battery is cooled down and ready to go. So we're going to chuck on the adapter here, which just slides on the back like so. It thinks it's a battery. And then we chuck on the 18 volt battery over the top of that, like thus. And we'll see if that takes 40 minutes, 45 minutes. It's supposed to take 40 minutes. It takes about 43 to 45 on the 18 volt. Let's see what happens. Meanwhile, I'm going to go do some testing, I do believe. There's that second fan kicking in. I am unlikely to use the adapter for the 18 volt batteries because I've got plenty of 18 volt chargers, and I imagine I'd end up losing the adapter anyway, but I have come up with another use for the adapter, I think, so stay tuned for that. And as for the 2.5 amp hour 40 volt batteries, they are smaller physically in every dimension, and they weigh around 700 grams. I don't have one to test in this video, unfortunately, because you can't get them in New Zealand yet. We only have the 40 volt ones, just like the UK seems to just about only have the 2.5s. Okay, 38 minutes, so that's 7 minutes quicker than the time for an 18 volt 5 amp hour that Makita give on an 18 volt charger, and a couple of minutes faster than what they said it would be on this charger. I normally charged, I did a couple the other day, and they were 43 minutes each on the dual rapid charger, so basically about 5 minutes quicker. Man, it's noisy. When it comes to the lights, slow flashing green is power on. Slow flashing blue, your battery's a bit hot. I assume that's what that means anyway. Quick flashing blue, the battery's charging. Full on blue, battery's 80% charged. Full on green, and your fancy little song, she's fully charged. And at the bottom there you can see if it's full on red, then your battery's stuffed. If it's red and blue flashing, then your battery or your fan or something stuffed. Fan plus battery. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that won't happen. So this is a 6 amp hour charger with the 40 volt batteries and a 12 amp hour. Draws 12 amps with a 18 volt. Wow, that's seems pretty high considering we only run 10 amp circuits here in New Zealand. That'll be how they get it a little bit quicker. Basically, when it comes to chargers, the higher the amp number that you've got on the bottom there, the quicker it's going to charge. If it says it's a fast charger and it's only 2 amps or something, then it's not a fast charger. The higher that number, the quicker it gets charged. Hell, that was pretty good.